When you're out fishing on the walleye trail, do you follow the moon phases much at all?
You know, I really don't pay too much attention because I'm fishing either way. You know,
Yeah, I suppose in the
I probably should, just from a educational standpoint, kind of keep track and see if it makes a difference. But what about you and the muskie?
I've been following that for about 4 or 5 years, and they definitely, on a bad day, can up your odds by keeping a tab on that and being on a spot where you know there's fish at that particular time. I had an instance with my brother 2 years ago. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. We weren't seeing anything. The moonrise was at 5:10 that day in the afternoon. Within a half an hour, we boated a 44 and a 46 and saw 2 other fish. And within an hour of that time frame, we never saw another fish the rest of the day. They just sparked at that time, and it was right. So I looked at my GPS, and it was right exactly during a moon phase.
And what are you looking for? Are you looking for the rise or the that or both?
Either one.
Or that whole period of between the two, or?
You usually have, like, if you have, like today we have a moon set at 11:52. You'll usually have maybe an hour either side of that. That could be a peak or a feeding time. Oh, pretty nice fish, I think.
Need the net?
Yeah. I don't know how well she's hooked.
I figure it's the one time I stopped watching your bait. I've been watching your bait all morning. And pretty nice fish.
I haven't seen her yet.
Coming over there.
Yeah, I think so. I found you play these fish a little bit lighter, they sometimes don't tend to get so wild on you. Just let them play them out. And you tell me when you're ready to take them. She's gonna come around again. Time to go. You're not supposed to get so wild on you. Not ready yet. I think she's still pretty good. Okay, she's ready there. And she's out. Get that bait out of the water first, out of the net.
Well, they're pretty green in here, huh?
Yeah. They're not real marked like in the clear water. Get this out of the way so we don't get a hook in it. Nice solid, not a big fish, but it's nice. It's the other thing, when you grab these fish, you get up here, if you put a finger right in here and pinch them here, it kind of paralyzes them.
It subdues them a little.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty thick.
Yeah, you know, it's pretty good girth for a smaller fish. You put her in October, she'll put a few more pounds on her yet. Not an ideal release at all.
Scott, when that fish hit, were we on top of the weed bed, or how were we positioned? Or how do you suspect the fish was positioned in relationship to the weed bed?
What we had done is we had just come around that weed tip point that I said dropped off into the main basin, and we're cutting this back, and there's it's a little more gradual weed line here, and we were just swinging, cutting, and we were casting up onto the weeds, probably a half a cast up onto the weeds and a half a cast off the edge. and that fish hit 3/4 halfway through, so it's pretty close to the right to the edge of the cabbage line.
Just right about where they should be.
Yeah, because the muskies are more creatures of ambush. They'll sit right on the edge of those weeds and wait for something, and they'll just dart out and grab them.
I noticed on the rod you handed me, you have a multi-strand leader, real flexible leader, and on the rod you have just a single wire leader. What are, you know, in what situations do you use which kind of leaders?
Well, in the case of the bait you're using, you could use a solid wire leader on there, but if you look really close when you bring that bait up close to the boat, with that prop, with that multi-layer stranded leader does, is you'll see the head kind of wobble a little bit. I think with that little wobble, it gives it a better action to it. Now, on the contrary, the bait I'm using is more of a, I guess you could call it a topwater jerk bait. And what this solid wire does is it doesn't flex it much. When you pull it, it kind of forces it and holds it, and you get better action that way. You need to keep a pretty good arsenal of both.
And what about leader length? What is your thoughts on that? I fished with one guy, an avid musky fisherman, Ryder sometimes. He uses all just 4 to 5 inch leaders. That's all he ever uses.
I like a leader that's basically at least as long as the bait. So that when that fish comes up and grabs it, if they swing around, they still have their teeth here. If you only have a 4-inch leader, they could, if they get up on this line, they could cut that pretty quick. This is a 65-pound line, but they could cut this like a scissors, and you're gone. So I like to use a leader at least as long as the bait you're using. If I was only using a small little bait like this, I could get away with a little smaller leader, but they don't seem to shy away from them, so I prefer a little bit longer one.